Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a mental image. I want you to imagine walking into your office or, your warehouse, your shop floor, and seeing a stack of cash just sitting there on a table.
Okay.
Let's call it 10,000 pounds, maybe $15,000. Just a nice, neat stack of bills.
I'm picturing it. It's a very good image to have in your head.
Now, imagine a stranger walks into the room, doesn't say a word, and just pours a can of lighter fluid all over that money.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Strikes a match, drops it, and just stands there watching it all burn to ash.
That's a visceral image. I think most people would probably tackle that guy before he even got the match lit.
Exactly. You'd scream, you'd call the police, you'd completely lose your mind because the loss is visible, it's tangible. It's right there in front of you, turning into smoke.
You can smell it.
You can absolutely smell it. But the research we have in front of us today, this whole stack of reports from the Journal of Data and Information Quality, studies from Oxford Economics, and this really deep analysis of the South African agency sector, it paints a picture of a loss that is just as real, just as expensive.
But completely invisible.
Completely invisible. And that's the real danger, isn't it?
It's silent. It doesn't smell like smoke. There's no alarm going off. It's just happening.
We are talking about dirty data. And I know as soon as I say the word data, there's a temptation for people to just, tune out.
Oh, for sure.
It sounds like a janitorial problem. It sounds like something the IT department deals with in the basement while everyone else upstairs does the real work.
But that attitude is exactly what makes it such a killer. That's the core of the problem.
Right. We're not talking about IT today. We are talking about a hemorrhage. A constant, slow financial bleed.
We are. And to put a specific number on it right out of the gate, because I think we need to shock the system a bit here.
Okay, let's have it.
British SMEs, so small to medium enterprises, are currently losing approximately 3.2 billion pounds every single year.
Wait, 3.2 billion with a B.
With a B.
That's not a typo in the notes.
Not a typo. And to be clear, that isn't the cost of servers or software subscriptions or buying new laptops for the team. That is the direct cost of corrupted, outdated, duplicate, or just plain incomplete records.
So it's a tax.
It's a tax on doing business that nobody signed up for, but almost everyone is paying.
So today, our mission is to make this invisible problem visible. We're going to really look at the anatomy of this disaster, why it happens, and maybe more importantly, why the usual fixes that people try. They often just make it worse.
Much worse.
We're going to talk about what we're calling the gig economy trap.
Yeah.
Where business owners, they're busy, they're trying to hire some cheap help on Upwork or Fiverr.
And they end up with a bigger mess than what they started with. It's a classic tragedy we see constantly in the logs.
And then, after we've thoroughly scared everyone, we're going to pivot to a very specific, and I have to say, a fascinating solution that's emerging from the bottom of the African continent.
It's a really interesting development.
We're going to look at why South Africa, and specifically an agency called VA Connect, is becoming this global alternative to the traditional hubs like the Philippines and India for this kind of high-end, complex administrative work.
And just to be clear on the pronunciation for everyone listening, it is VA Connect.
Right, VA Connect. Thank you. We're going to explore why they argue that you can't just automate your way out of this mess. You can't just buy a piece of software to fix it, that actually you need a human brain. So let's start with the pain. Why is dirty data such a silent killer?
Well, think about the anatomy of a business. It's like a body. You have sales, marketing, finance, customer service. They're all different organs.
Okay.
They all rely on the same bloodstream to function. And that bloodstream is information. It's data. So if that bloodstream is poisoned, if the data is wrong, the organs start to fail. But they fail slowly. It's not a heart attack. It's more like a chronic illness.
Okay, let's make that concrete. Because productivity loss is the buzzword we hear all the time. It's easy to dismiss. What does that actually look like on a Tuesday morning for an employee?
It looks like friction. That's the best word for it. It's thousands of tiny, frustrating moments that add up. Let's look at the findings from the Journal of Data and Information Quality. They found that organizations with poor data quality suffer a 20 to 30% productivity loss in their customer-facing teams.
20 to 30%. Okay, let's actually do the math on that for a second. If I have a small team, say my total payroll is, 750,000 pounds a year?
Yeah.
Which is pretty reasonable for a 15-person specialized agency.
Yeah, that's a standard wage goal. Absolutely.
So if I'm losing 20 to 30% of their output to this friction, I am effectively taking between 150,000 and 225,000 pounds and flushing it straight down the toilet.
You are. You're paying for work that isn't happening. Or, more accurately, you're paying smart, expensive people to do dumb, repetitive, soul-destroying work.
Let's break it down by department. I think that's where the real story is. Let's start with sales.
The engine room.
The engine room. This is where the money comes from.
Right. So you hire a salesperson, you're paying them a good salary, good commission, you want them on the phone, closing deals, building relationships. High-value work.
High energy.
High energy, exactly. But the data says they are spending up to 14 hours a week. That's nearly 2 full working days chasing ghosts.
Ghosts. What do you mean by ghosts?
Leads that don't exist,
Right.
or rather contacts that are no longer relevant. They pick up the phone, they dial the number in the CRM, and a voice says, "This number is no longer in service."
Ugh.
Or they spend 20 minutes crafting the perfect email to John Smith, head of marketing at Acne Corps, and they get an instant bounce back. Why? Because John left that job 3 years ago and nobody ever updated the record.
That's not just wasted time. That is deeply demoralizing. You're trying to build momentum. You're revving the engine, and the gears are just grinding.
It absolutely kills momentum. A salesperson feeds on positive feedback loops. A good call leads to another good call. But if every third or fourth interaction is a dead end because the data is bad, their energy just plummets. They start making fewer calls. The pipeline dries up.
It's a death spiral.
It is a death spiral initiated by a bad spreadsheet from 5 years ago.
And what about marketing? Because this is where I feel like automation, which is supposed to be the solution, actually bites you.
Oh, marketing is where the secondary costs just explode. It's a nightmare. Let's say you've got a database of, say, 10,000 email addresses you've collected over the years. You decide to send out a newsletter. Standard stuff.
Yep. Done it 1,000 times.
But 3,000 of those emails are what we call hard bounces. They're just invalid addresses. Old domains, typos, people who've left their jobs.
Okay, so I wasted a bit of money on my email service provider for sending those 3,000 emails. Not the end of the world.
But it is a big deal. Because the big players, Google, Outlook, Yahoo, they're watching. Their algorithms see that you just sent a huge batch of emails to nowhere, and they don't think, oh, they have messy data. They think, this person looks like a spammer. They immediately downgrade your sender reputation. It's a score tied to your domain. And once that score drops...
On my good emails.
Your good emails, the ones you send to your actual high-value paying clients, they start going straight to the spam folder.
So I'm now invisible to the people who matter most.
You're shouting into a void. And once your domain reputation is torched, it is incredibly difficult and time-consuming to get it back. You've fundamentally damaged your business's infrastructure because you didn't clean a list.
It's like not changing the oil in your car and then being surprised when the engine blows up on the motorway.
Perfect analogy. And we haven't even touched finance yet.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to forecast your quarterly revenue when your system lists Apple, Apple Inc., and Apple Computer as 3 different companies.
Right.
You think you have 3 healthy, diversified clients. You actually have 1. So your risk profile is completely wrong. You go and make hiring decisions based on that faulty forecast, and then, oops, you realize you're massively overextended because your data lied to you.
There was a story in the source material, I think it was from a Reddit thread on small business, that really stuck with me on this. It was a consultancy owner, but a £2 million turnover business.
The Reddit anecdote. Yeah, this one is painful to read.
It was a horror movie in slow motion.
Yeah.
He knew his data was a mess. He's busy. He's stressed. He's running a business. So he does what everyone thinks they should do. He goes to the internet. He goes to Fiverr.
The gig economy route, it seems so easy. Fast, cheap, invisible.
He hires a freelancer to clean the data. Doesn't really vet them, just picks the one with a bunch of 5-star reviews and a low hourly rate.
A classic mistake. And what happened?
Well, the first freelancer deleted rows that looked like duplicates but were actually different branches of the same client. So he lost crucial billing addresses.
Ouch. Okay. That's a disaster.
So he panics. He fires that person, hires a second one. This person doesn't really understand the software he's using, tries to merge records, and ends up creating more duplicates than there were to begin with.
So they made the problem worse.
Exponentially worse.
Yeah.
And the third freelancer he hired
Let me guess. The classic ghost.
vanished. Took the login credentials, did about 2 days of work, and then just disappeared into the digital ether. No replies to emails, account deleted, gone.
Wow.
So at the end of it all, the business owner's out £1,200 in fees. But the real cost, the terrifying cost, was that his data was now radioactive. He couldn't trust a single entry in his own system.
And that story illustrates the fundamental trap here. The problem wasn't that he hired someone cheap. You can find affordable talent. The problem was he hired a task doer when what he desperately needed was a process thinker.
Unpack that distinction for me. Task doer versus process thinker. That sounds really important.
It's everything. A task doer, which is what you typically find on a platform like Upwork or Fiverr, is incentivized by one thing: speed. Your instructions are delete duplicates. So they find things that look like duplicates and they delete them.
They do the tasks.
They do exactly what you ask. They don't stop and ask, wait, this has the same company name but a different address. Is this actually a duplicate or is it a new franchise location? They just execute. They are, in essence, renting you their hands.
And what you really need is a brain.
You need someone who understands context, someone who can exercise judgment, and this brings us right to the core of our deep dive today. Because usually when we talk about moving away from the gig economy to something more robust, people's minds immediately go to one of two places.
India or the Philippines?
Exactly, that's the standard playbook, outsourcing 1.0. But the sources we're analyzing today are pointing to a massive shift in the landscape. There is a new hub emerging that is specifically suited for this kind of high-context, brain-intensive work.
And that is South Africa.
That is South Africa.
This genuinely surprised me when I was reading the materials. I mean, I know South Africa has a big BPO sector, business process outsourcing, but I always associated that with, call centers. I didn't realize it was competing at this high level.
Yeah.
So why there? Why now?
It's a convergence of three critical factors. We're calling them the triad of alignment. It's geography, culture, and economics. And honestly, the geography part, what we call the time zone mathematics, is the one that nobody thinks about until it's far too late.
Okay, let's do the math then.
Okay, let's take a standard scenario. You're a business owner in London. You decide to hire a virtual assistant in Manila, in the Philippines. Manila is GMT +8.
Okay, so there's 7 or 8 hours ahead of me, depending on the time of year.
Exactly. So when you're sitting down with your morning coffee at 9 a.m., ready to start your day, it's, what, 4 or 5 p.m. in Manila?
Their day's basically over.
Their day is over, they're packing up, they are mentally checking out. So you send them a task at the start of your day. Hey, please clean up this spreadsheet of new leads. They do it while you sleep. You wake up the next morning, you check the work, and you realize they misunderstood one of the columns. A simple mistake.
So I send a correction, a quick email. Hey, you used the wrong format here.
But they're asleep now, so they don't see your correction until their next morning, which is your middle of the night. You have just lost a full 48 hours to fix one minor misunderstanding.
That lag loop kills all agility. You can't move quickly.
You can't. Now, compare that to Cape Town.
Okay.
Cape Town is GMT +2. That is usually just 1 hour ahead of London. Sometimes 2, with daylight saving.
So for all intents and purposes, we are working the same shift.
You're working in sync. You can jump on a Slack huddle or a Zoom call at 10 a.m. your time, clarify a complex issue in 5 minutes, and they can go and do the work immediately. That synchronicity, that real-time communication, allows for complex delegation. You can't delegate complex thinking if you can't talk in real time.
That makes a huge amount of sense. It seems so obvious when you lay it out like that. But then we have to talk about the second piece, the cultural aspects. And I want to tread carefully here because obviously English is spoken all over the world. But the sources we have really emphasize a specific kind of English, a specific cultural alignment in South Africa.
It's about linguistic nuance, and it's a huge differentiator. In many parts of Asia, English is a learned language, and it can be very heavily Americanized due to historical and media influence. South Africa, on the other hand, has a British colonial legacy. English is a first language for many professionals there.
This is the organization test you mentioned in the prep.
Precisely. Organization with an S color, with a U. Annalise with an S. It sounds so trivial, but if you're a British brand and your customer support emails are going out with American spellings, it creates a subtle dissonance for your customers. It just feels off. It feels outsourced.
It suddenly breaks the trust. It signals that you're not really local.
It does, but it goes so much deeper than just spelling. It's about shared idioms, humor, business etiquette. The source material references some fascinating research by a Dr. Helena Swart in the Academy of Management Journal. She found that South African professionals have 34% fewer context misunderstandings with UK clients compared to other major outsourcing hubs.
34%. That's not a small number. That is a massive efficiency gain right there.
It's the difference between asking someone to review this, please, which a British manager implies means find the mistakes and fix it now, and someone on the other side of the world hearing, take a look at this if you have some spare time. South Africans get the subtext.
They understand the famous British passive-aggressive
They
politeness.
speak fluent passive-aggressive, yes. They know that not too bad can mean anything from it's a disaster to it's absolutely brilliant.
Okay. And finally, the third part of the triad. The economics. We can't ignore the money. What are we looking at cost-wise?
So the sources state that a skilled, experienced South African VA, someone you'd trust with your core data, typically commands a salary of roughly 25,000 to 35,000 rand per month.
Okay, 25 to 35,000 rand. Let's translate that for our Western listeners. What does that look like in pounds or dollars?
At current exchange rates, that's roughly 1,100 to 1,550 pounds a month, or about 1,300 to 1,800 US dollars.
And what would a comparable role in the UK cost? A skilled admin? An operations assistant?
You'd be looking at a salary of 28,000 to 35,000 pounds a year, plus national insurance, pension contributions, and so on. All in, you're looking at about a 60% saving.
So it's significantly cheaper, but it's clearly not sweatshop cheap. That salary in South Africa is a proper professional wage.
Correct, and that's the key. You aren't scraping the bottom of the barrel for the cheapest possible option. You are paying a solid middle-class salary in Cape Town for a level of quality and contextual understanding that would cost you double or triple in London or New York. It's economic arbitrage, but it's quality-focused arbitrage.
So that sets the stage for the location. It's a powerful combination. Now I want to pivot to the specific model we're looking at. We're talking about VA Connect. And the outline highlights this critical distinction between an agency and a platform.
This is the most important structural difference, I think. It's the whole ball game.
We've talked about the poor guy on Reddit who used Fiverr. That's the platform model.
Right. Platforms like Upwork or Fiverr are essentially marketplaces. They are incentivized for speed, volume, and visibility. The freelancer wants to get the job done as fast as possible so they can get a 5-star review and move on to the next job in the queue.
Their loyalty is to the platform's algorithm, not to my business.
Exactly. They are incentivized to do exactly what you ask them to do, even if what you ask for is fundamentally stupid or destructive.
I cleaned the data for you, boss. I deleted everything that had the word test in it, just like you said.
Precisely. They are task doers. An agency like VA Connect operates on a completely different model. They are a managed agency. Their core incentive is client retention. They want you to be a happy client for years, not just for one project.
And their loyalty is to their own reputation and their long-term relationship with you.
Yes. And that changes everything. There was a story about a woman named Sarah Mitchell in the notes. She runs an online craft supply business.
Yes, I remember this one. It was painful. She went through 7 different contractors. 7.
And the fascinating thing was, the issue wasn't that they were incompetent. They could all follow basic instructions. The problem was that they would hit an edge case, and everything would grind to a halt.
Define edge case for us in this context. What does that mean?
An edge case is something that falls outside the standard predefined rules. So imagine you give a VA a simple rule. If a customer hasn't bought anything from us in the last 12 months, mark their account as inactive.
Simple enough. A clear instruction.
But then the VA comes across a customer who hasn't bought anything in 18 months, but they did open a support ticket last week asking about a new product. So, are they inactive, or are they actually a warm lead who's about to buy?
That requires judgment. It's not a simple yes-no.
It requires judgment. A freelancer on a platform will usually do one of two things. They'll either just guess and potentially make the wrong call, or they'll just stop. Sarah found that her Upwork hires would just go silent when they hit these bumps. They'd get stuck and not know what to do.
So what happened when Sarah hired VA Connect?
The assistant they assigned her started keeping what she called a running document of edge cases.
Oh, I love that concept. What is that? A shared document.
A shared Google Doc. And instead of just stopping, the VA would document the situation. She would write, "Hey, Sarah, I noticed this pattern with customers who open support tickets but haven't purchased. Here is a proposed rule for how we should handle this situation in the future."
Wow. That's a completely different level of engagement.
It's the difference between asking, "What do I do?" and proposing, "Here is what I think we should do." The freelancer is a pair of hands. The managed VA is a partner. They are a brain.
They're proactively improving the process, not just executing tasks.
And that's all backed by a physical structure. This is another key difference. VA Connect VAs don't work from their bedrooms. They work from managed professional facilities.
Why does that matter so much? I mean, we're all working remotely now. Why should I care if they're in an office building or at their kitchen table?
You care because South Africa, for all its strengths, has infrastructure challenges. They have something called load shedding, which is basically scheduled rolling power outages to protect the national grid. They can last for hours at a time.
Oh, right.
And residential internet stability can be patchy in some areas. So if your VA is working from home, they might just go dark for 4 hours right in the middle of your workday, right when you need them most.
So the managed facility removes that risk.
Completely. VA Connect has ISO-certified facilities with industrial-grade generators and multiple backup fiber lines. They guarantee uptime. It removes the infrastructure risk entirely from the client.
And that stability must have a huge impact on retention. I saw a really stark statistic here. Staffing industry analysts report a 34% retention rate for platform freelancers.
Which is abysmal. It means, on average, a freelancer you hire today will be gone in less than 6 months. They find a better paying gig, or they get bored with your project, or they just burn out.
Versus an 89% retention rate for managed agencies in general. And VA Connect specifically claims a 98% retention rate over a 14-month period.
That is an astronomical number in the outsourcing world. It's almost unheard of. And think about what that actually means for your data and your business.
Well, if my freelancer quits after 4 months, I'm back at square one. I have to find someone new, vet them, train them, explain my entire business all over again.
You have to explain what an edge case is all over again. You lose all that accumulated knowledge.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
But if a VA Connect VA leaves, which is rare, but it can happen, they might move or change careers, the agency has all the documentation. They have the process maps. They have the edge case document. They can slot a new, fully trained person into that role, and you, the client, barely feel the break.
So you're not just hiring a person, you're hiring...
You're hiring institutional memory.
That is a great phrase. Institutional memory. You're building an asset within their company that serves your company, not just renting a person's hours.
Exactly. It de-risks the entire process.
Now, how do they actually achieve that retention? Because 98% doesn't happen by accident. This brings us to their internal ecosystem, which, when I was reading about it, sounded more like a tech campus in Silicon Valley than a remote assistant agency.
It really does. They've understood that to get high-quality, consistent work on complex tasks, you can't just hire good people. You have to create an environment where good people can thrive. And it starts with something they call VA Varsity.
VA Varsity, so like a university.
Precisely. It's their own internal university. It's an online learning platform, like a corporate version of Udemy or Coursera, but tailored to their needs.
So this is about continuous learning. It's not just a one-off training when they're hired.
No, it's constant. This addresses a huge problem with most employees, even the ones you hire in-house. They can become a depreciating asset. Their skills go stale. You hire them because they're an expert in Excel, but then the world moves to Airtable or some new tool, and they don't know it.
So you're stuck. You either have to pay for expensive external training, fire them and hire someone new, or you just let them struggle.
Or you let your business fall behind. VA Connect encourages, almost forces, continuous upskilling. A new piece of project management software comes out. There's a course for it on VA Varsity. They need to learn advanced data visualization. There's a course for it. They learn soft skills, communication skills, specific industry tools.
So the VA you're working with is actually getting smarter and more capable over time while you're paying them the same rate.
Which is an incredible value proposition for the client. You get a more capable brain for the same price, and you didn't have to manage any of the training.
Then there's this program called Atomic Energy, which, I'll be honest, sounds like a superhero team, but the notes say it's a wellness program.
It is. And this is fascinating because it directly addresses the #1 killer of productivity and quality in remote work: burnout.
Burnout is so real, especially when you're working remotely. You can feel very isolated from the team culture, staring at a screen all day.
Atomic Energy is their antidote to that. It provides their staff with access to diet and exercise coaches, mental mobility training, even performance and accountability coaches.
Wait, they have diet coaches for their VAs?
Yes. And it's not just fluff. The logic is simple and brutally pragmatic. A healthy, energetic, mentally balanced human being does better work. They make fewer mistakes. They miss fewer details in your database.
A burnt-out employee is an error-prone employee.
Absolutely. So by investing in the holistic wellness of their staff, VA Connect is directly investing in the reliability and quality of the service they provide to you. It's enlightened self-interest.
That is a level of management and care you just do not get with a freelancer. You don't ask your guy on Fiverr if he's eating enough vegetables or getting enough sleep.
You definitely don't. And frankly, you don't care. You just want the task done. But VA Connect cares because their entire business model depends on that person showing up and being sharp, focused, and motivated every single day for years.
And then the final piece of this internal puzzle is VAPI.
VAPI. It's their happiness program.
The two-way happiness program. What does that mean? Two-way.
It means they actively manage the relationship in both directions. They manage the relationship between the client and the VA to ensure it's healthy and productive. But they also manage the relationship between the VA and their own internal team at VA Connect.
So it's about making sure the remote worker doesn't feel isolated?
Exactly. It ensures they feel connected to a culture, that they have colleagues, that they have a support system. It prevents that feeling of being a lone wolf, which is another major contributor to burnout and churn.
So they've basically built a machine designed to generate happy, highly skilled, reliable, long-term human assets.
Which is exactly what you need if you want someone to care about the often boring, tedious, detail-oriented work of cleaning a massive database. You can't grind people into dust on this kind of work. They will quit or make mistakes. You have to support them.
Speaking of cleaning databases, let's get into the case study, because we promised a resurrection at the top of the show.
The 400-hour database resurrection. It's a great example of the whole process in action.
This is a story about a client they called James. He's a London marketing agency owner. Can you set the scene for us? What kind of mess was he in?
James is in serious trouble. He has a successful agency, about 47 employees, but his operational data is a complete disaster. He has 14,000 contact records scattered across 3 different non-integrated systems, an old CRM, a bunch of random project management spreadsheets, and MailChimp for his email lists.
The unholy trinity of data chaos. I think a lot of listeners will recognize that setup.
And it's estimated that about 40% of his records are duplicates. Names are inconsistent. You have ABC Ltd, ABC Limited, all treated as separate entities. It's a mess.
And he had tried to fix this before, right? This wasn't his first attempt.
Twice. His first attempt was the classic one. He gave the project to a junior employee.
Hey, intern, here's a fun project for you. Fix our entire company database.
Exactly. The intern, predictably, got completely overwhelmed, didn't have the business context to make judgment calls, and quietly quit the project after 2 weeks. Then James made the second classic mistake. He hired an Upwork contractor for £800.
How did that go?
The contractor did what you'd expect. They removed the obvious, perfect match duplicates. But they didn't touch the structural issues, the inconsistencies, the ABC Ltd versus ABC Limited problem. It was a cosmetic fix that didn't solve the underlying disease.
So James is frustrated. He's wasted time and money. And he calls VA Connect. How did they tackle it differently from the very beginning?
They broke it down into 3 distinct phases. This is the managed difference we were talking about. Phase 1 was the audit.
So they didn't just jump in and start deleting things.
Absolutely not. They spent 2 full weeks doing nothing but mapping the ecosystem, asking questions, defining the rules of engagement. What officially counts as a lead in your business? What are the criteria that move a lead to a client? What's the process? They produced a 12-page audit document for James to sign off on before they touched a single record.
That's pure strategy. That's acting like a high-end consultant, not a data cleaner.
That's the value. Then they moved to phase 2, which was the cleanup. This took 340 hours of systematic, methodical work.
340 hours.
Yeah.
That's an enormous amount of grinding.
It is. But it wasn't mindless grinding. They used a decision matrix based on the rules defined in the audit, and critically, they didn't guess. If there was a conflict, like one record for a contact says their status is active and another says churned, they didn't just pick one and delete the other.
What did they do?
They flagged it for human review. They created a separate review list spreadsheet with all the conflicts and edge cases and sent it to James.
So James only had to get involved to check the really hard stuff, the judgment calls.
Exactly. He spent maybe 2 hours a week making the high-level decisions instead of 340 hours doing the grunt work himself. They elevated his involvement to purely strategic.
And phase 3. What happens after the cleanup?
Governance. This is the part everyone forgets. It's about ongoing maintenance. They implemented weekly data health scans. They helped James create standardized intake forms for new contacts so that dirty data couldn't creep back into the system. They fixed the leak. They didn't just mop the floor.
So what was the final result? What did it all achieve?
They consolidated those 14,000 chaotic records down to 8,200 clean, verified, trustworthy contacts.
Wow. So nearly half of his database was just junk.
Nearly half was junk, Think of the wasted storage costs. Think of the wasted marketing spend. Speaking of which, his email deliverability jumped from a miserable 71% to a healthy 94%.
That's a huge commercial impact right there.
Huge. And get this, the sales team reported that their initial qualification calls were, on average, 8 minutes shorter.
8 minutes shorter. Why?
Because for the first time, they had all the right information in front of them when they made the call. They didn't have to waste the first part of the conversation asking, so, just to confirm, what is your current job title? Or who is the ultimate decision maker on this? They knew. They could get straight to building rapport and solving the client's problem.
That's a massive productivity gain across the whole team.
Yeah.
And the cost for all this.
The total project cost for the cleanup was about £5,100, plus a smaller ongoing monthly fee for the governance and maintenance. And James had this amazing quote. He said, "The cost of finally fixing it properly was less than I had budgeted for one mid-level hire's recruitment fees."
That really puts it in perspective. That is a massive ROI. But I know what some of our listeners are probably thinking right now. This is all very interesting, but why didn't he just use software? There are tools out there like Clearbit, ZoomInfo. AI is everywhere. Why do we still need humans for this?
This is the automation paradox, and it's a critical point to understand.
Let's unpack that. What is the paradox?
Software is incredibly powerful, but it's also incredibly literal. It's great at matching identical strings of text. It sees Johnson Consulting at one address and Johnson Consulting at another, and it flags it as a duplicate to be merged.
But a human might see something different.
A human looks at the context. A human says, oh, wait, this one is in Manchester and this one is in London. And the contact person is different. They didn't make a mistake. They've expanded. They've opened a second office. If you let the software automatically merge those, you've just lost the address and contact for their new London branch. You've actively degraded your data in the name of cleaning it.
Or what you called the inactive versus delete dilemma earlier.
A perfect example. An ex-CEO leaves a company. Software sees that his email address now bounces, and its rule says, invalid contact, delete. A human, a strategic assistant, says, wait a minute, that's a valuable relationship. He's going to surface at a new prospect company in the next 6 months. Let's not delete him. Let's mark him as past, keep his LinkedIn profile, and set a reminder to track where he lands.
That is strategic value that a machine just can't replicate.
A machine doesn't understand relationships. It only understands data fields.
And the connection to the AI revolution is even scarier, because everyone is rushing to implement AI tools.
But AI eats data. That's its fuel. And if you feed it garbage, you get garbage results. There was a major Stanford study in 2024 that found that data quality issues reduce the performance of AI models by an average of 27%.
Garbage in, garbage out, the oldest rule in computing.
If you try to train a customer service chatbot using your history of bad support tickets, tickets with typos, with the wrong categories assigned, with incomplete information, you are literally training the bot to be incompetent.
You're actively teaching it to be bad at its job.
Exactly. So what VA Connect and services like them are doing, it isn't a throwback to a pre-automation era. It is the absolute prerequisite for the future. They are the strategic human layer that prepares your data for successful automation.
I read a horror story on Hacker News about this exact problem. A founder used an offshore team that he said cleaned his data to death.
Oh, that one. It's a cautionary tale. They followed the rules so rigidly, they merged everything so aggressively that they lost all the nuanced interaction history. They couldn't tell which salesperson had spoken to which contact about what project. The founder's quote was, "It was technically perfect and operationally useless."
That chills me to the bone. To have perfectly clean data that you can't actually use to run your business.
That is the ultimate risk when you remove human judgment and context from the process.
Okay, so we've established the why and the who. I think people get it. Let's talk about the how. If a listener is sitting here now feeling that pain and wants to engage with a company like VA Connect, what does that practically look like? What are the logistics?
Well, they offer very structured, tiered packages. It's not a free-for-all.
For teams, they have something called the Growth Accelerator.
Right, and that has tiers within it. The starter tier is called the Forge, which is about $4,380 a month. For that, you get 40 hours a week of work from their team, and you get a dedicated EVA, an executive virtual assistant, who acts as your single point of contact.
So you're not managing a team of people. You talk to one person, and they manage the resources on their end.
Correct. It simplifies it for the client. Then there are higher tiers like the Summit at $6,080 and the Apex at $8,800. Those just scale up the hours and the complexity of work they can handle.
And what if you're a smaller business or a solo entrepreneur? If you just need one dedicated person?
They have dedicated VA packages for that. A starter package for about 10 hours a week is in the range of $1,000 to $1,200 a month. And a full-time, 40-hour-a-week dedicated VA is roughly $2,800 to $3,200.
And again, let's just pause on that. Roughly $3,000 a month for a full-time, managed, university-educated, continuously trained professional. That is just incredible value compared to hiring in the US or the UK.
And it's important to remember the currency context again. That translates to a salary of 25,000 to 35,000 Rand, which is a very good professional living in South Africa. You aren't exploiting anyone, you're leveraging a globalized economy.
Now, the most critical part, implementation. You mentioned earlier that most people fail because they just throw the work over the fence on day one. How does VA Connect prevent that? How do they handle the start of a relationship?
They're very disciplined about it. They don't even call it hiring, they call it integration. And they have a highly recommended 4-week schedule to get started.
Okay, walk us through it. What happens in week one?
Week 1 is read-only access. You give the VA access to your systems, but they are not allowed to touch anything. Their permissions are set to read only.
So the handcuffs are on.
Just for that first week. Their job is not to do tasks. Their job is to learn the business. They need to understand your customer journey. They need to read your old emails to understand your company's tone of voice. They're absorbing context.
That requires a lot of patience from the client, who probably just wants them to start clearing the backlog.
It does, but it's the foundation for everything. If you skip this, you fail. Then, week 2 is supervised execution. They start doing the actual work, but they have to keep a detailed daily review log of every action they took. And you, the client, have to review it at the end of each day.
That sounds tedious, but I can see why it's necessary.
It is, but you're not micromanaging. You are calibrating their brain to yours. You're catching misunderstandings when they are small before they become big problems. This is the investment phase.
And then week 3?
Progressive autonomy. You start to back off, you review the log every other day, then twice a week. You're building trust. By month 2, you should be in a state of systematic maintenance, where they are operating autonomously and you're just having regular strategic check-ins.
And I'm guessing the VA Connect account managers are there in the background to make sure the client doesn't skip these crucial steps.
Exactly. They act as the guardrails. They will actively intervene if they see a client trying to rush the process. They'll say, hey, stop. You need to do a calibration call with your VA. You're moving too fast.
So, bringing it all together as we wrap up, we started this deep dive with this idea of a silent killer. Dirty data costing businesses billions.
A hidden tax.
We looked at why the gig economy, despite its appeal, often fails to solve the problem because of misaligned incentives and a lack of oversight.
The task doer versus the process thinker.
And then we dove into this emerging South African advantage, the powerful combination of time zone alignment, cultural nuance, and the managed agency safety net.
And specifically the VA Connect model as an example of that. The focus on institutional memory, the continuous upskilling with VA Varsity, the wellness programs that reduce burnout and ensure quality.
It's a really compelling argument. It feels like it moves the entire conversation away from how do I get this administrative task done as cheaply as possible?
And moves it to how do I build a reliable, intelligent, and scalable operational system for my business?
That's the shift. It feels like we are maturing from the gig era to the remote career era. And companies like VA Connect, with their focus on VA Varsity and professional development, are proof of that maturation.
I think so.
So here's the final provocation for you, the listener. As you sit here thinking about your own business, and you see all the hype and all the noise about AI and automation, the question you should be asking yourself isn't, can I afford a human to clean my database?
No, the real question is, as the world inevitably moves toward AI, is your business building its castle on a foundation of solid concrete, or are you building it on a swamp of dirty data?
Treat your data as the strategic asset it truly is, folks, not just as a spreadsheet that needs to be scrubbed. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.